It's 2 a.m. It's 2 a.m. and the wind is howling. I was just checking the magnetosphere simulations, and I don't want to say what's happening is unprecedented. I do want to say it's extraordinary, and I do think you should know about it, and soon. Now, we theorized we were passing between this a brown dwarf and the sun last year, approximately the same time that prediction was made. We had the largest single magnetic shift in the history of the planet since we've been measuring that. But I use this magnetosphere because it measures energy, not concentration. All the other simulations measures concentration. This magnetosphere simulation features the sun off to the right, Earth is coming at you. Those curved lines off to the right of the Earth is our bow compression zones. And you notice Earth develops 2, 3, and sometimes 4 bow compression zones when we get a lot of electrons. You have the low energy electrons get caught in the outer band, which normally you don't see because most of the electrons coming off the sun have higher energies. So we're having low energy electrons, but don't take that too lightly, coming into our magnetosphere. And these simulations sometimes feature backside penetration of particles almost all the time. And generally that's because the electrons get wrapped around and then appear in the frame of the simulation, usually the backside. But sometimes you can see them coming in from the right-hand side of these simulations. But the simulation I'm referring to and featuring now shows you energy. And if you were to look at this and you look at Earth in the middle, you would say there was more energy on the back side of Earth than on the solar side of Earth. And if you made that assumption, it would be true. And notice how there's like a bow compression zone, a reverse bow compression zone. Really beautiful symmetry, but it's ominous in what it's implying. Now, these simulations here, you can just see our magnetosphere is shaped by that outside dark line, and these have been changed in the past, and they're kind of suspect because we always used to get saturations, and then all of a sudden they just kind of went away on this simulation. And I don't know what would happen after a year of getting saturations. All of a sudden we would stop getting saturations, unless of course somebody smoothed out some of the empirical data. But you can see the shape of the magnetosphere. There's no tail stream. It's kind of bizarre, and the tail stream going in the wrong direction. But since this is measuring electrons, you're not picking up anything related to particles coming in the other direction that aren't electrons. Now we know what the distortions we're seeing are electrons. We know they're not protons. The proton background flux only. It's been that way for 3 or 4 years. Background levels only. But so, and half of all the electron instruments are no longer reporting. So these are what are left. This is one of the shells. So this is one that obviously that's picking up a lot of electrons, and they're lower energy, from 10 to 100 keVs. Some of the electrons coming off the sun are 10 times hotter. But you notice also they're coming in pulses. So that kind of indicates the helium-3, helium-4 origins to some of your electrons, because helium-3, helium-4 always pulses in to anywhere, if gravitationally focused or not. They travel in a very specific way, at very specific speeds. So when there's no protons, we get a lot of electrons. We see some compressions of the magnetosphere. But we go to another electron instrument, which is highly abstract, but it's giving you the highest reading that the graph can measure, that white, and a very concentrated. And it's giving you the longitude and the latitude, but notice the latitude is right at the equator. And notice there's like, it's lobular. There's a greater white at the top and bottom, like hourglass shape. And that's because that's the influence of our North Pole and our South Pole upon those electrons. When they fly past our poles, they wrap back around and try to re-enter. But unfortunately, a lot of them try to re-enter at the equator. And when they all meet at the equator, they repel one another. And when they get so concentrated, they reach a critical mass and eject into the tailstream of Earth's magnetic field. But I'm going to run this simulation forward. I'm going to slow it down. But you can see that back ring. And when the sun's electrons and the coronal hole stream hits, it kind of pushes that out. And you lose those triple rings on the front side of Earth. But now when the solar wind lags, you'll see an expansion of the front and a filling of the rear. And again, you're seeing very low energy, but you're seeing a very widespread disperse. And then all of a sudden, you see flashes, and there is instantaneous change in all of these, and that's because something extraordinary is happening. But here you see, again, an outer halo on the back side, and that's created by two different opposing electrons. And if there was not a brown dwarf off to the left, you would not be seeing this type of orientation to the magnetosphere. And the other simulations proved what I'm saying is correct. But notice how widespread the energy is on the back side. This measures energy, not concentration. And all of a sudden, when you get a lot of energy on the back side and encroachments into the front, look at that. That red is the highest concentration of energy that this simulation measures. And it's coming from the wrong side. And you see on the right-hand side additional rings showing up, and the more energy on the back side, the more rings on the front side. That's amazing. And so you have a system of electrons that want to repel one another, but our magnetic field is fighting that repelling force. And every once in a while, it wins, and it focuses these electrons in, and then when they reach critical mass, they eject. But what's killing me is they're not ejecting anymore. It's just staying there, stationary, and that's because there's so many electrons coming from that brown dwarf. So looking down on the solar system, sun off to the right, Earth going to the bottom of your screen in that direction, you can see if there were a constant presence of backside pressure, then those arrows will be pointing at Earth. And generally, most of those arrows are created by the sun. Now, they could be wraparound electrons, making that arrow point that way. But even when the electrons eject, and they do so slowly and hesitantly now, when they eject, those arrows are still pointing at the Earth. Still pointing at the Earth. And you can even see sudden flashes of concentration. And that gets me, because this is measuring concentration, and you see all of a sudden a sudden appearance of from no concentration to a little bit higher concentration. It goes from dark blue to light blue, almost like you're flipping on a switch. And to me, for anything to be happening that quick, you've got to be measuring electrons, because things happen at the speed of light when you talk about electrons. And finally, this one, Earth off to the right, excuse me, the sun off to the right, Earth is coming at you. And we would expect coiling and wrapping around of the sun's wind as it passes by Earth and meets opposition in the flux tube or the tailstream or the cavity created by Earth in the solar wind parameter, in the solar wind orientation. And we see rapid infiltration. It's like flipping on a switch, dark blue to light blue. And when the wind comes in from the left, as the arrows in the previous simulation have suggested, those blue vertical lines are almost never traveling right to left. There's a few disturbances that happen, and they happen quickly and suddenly, and all of a sudden there's an appearance of dozens of magnetic field lines when there's none in the tailstream, and then all of a sudden there's dozens of crisscrossing magnetic field lines. Now those vertical lines, and so those magnetic field lines are spiraling right to left, but they aren't. I mean, and I have never seen such a prolonged influence of the left to right drifting of those magnetic field lines. It's always been a pulse now, a pulse later, but not sustained. And what we're seeing is sustained. And that means we're passing in between this brown dwarf and the sun. And if I'm right, which I think I am, you'll see the earthquake patterns. And I don't think there's any geo-effective alignments right now. So if the earthquakes show up, you know exactly where this brown dwarf is. You know exactly what's going on in your solar system and on your planet. But this is a lot of radiation, a lot of it. And so you want to, shield your car windows if you're going on long trips, wear layered clothes, drink lots of water and chlorophyll, and you want to shield your windows. You want to keep your kids inside. You want to wear hats with double nylon on them at least, and you want to limit their exposure. Early morning, late evening. But it's remarkable, and people's compasses have got to be doing weird things. So if anything weird happening to your compass, please give us a shout out down below in the comment section.